this mid-range category is actually what a lot of people are looking for. It's just quite unknown. Everyone looks at no and low and expects it to be kind of under 1% type of thing. And then they look at the full strength, but there's this gaping middle ground, which is actually where most people would want to be if they are.
Hi, Low No Nation, and welcome to this week's conversation on the Low No Drinker podcast. Today, I'm talking to the lovely Mr. Russell Lamb, who is the founder of 6%, a new wine range that has come out to bridge that middle gap for those who are looking to enjoy the flavours of full-strength wine without the alcohol of full-strength wine. Russell's wine is made in Bordeaux, one of the premium winemaking regions in the world, and I'm really interested to know how the whole process has come about,
all the way down to
how
zero,
he's developed this wine, and how it's been received
a bit more in this,
both
and then we blend it back up to 6%
here at home, as well as his thoughts on the low and light range and where they fit in today's moderating society. So I'm really excited to hear Russ's point of view. And Russell, thank you very much for joining me. How are you doing today?
I'm all right, thank you. Not bad. Very excited to be on the cast. Thank you for bringing me on.
Oh, it's great to have you. Great to have you. I've spoken to a couple of mid-range producers, and I'm really excited always to get them on because I think this is an area that we don't get to talk very much about. Regular listeners will know that I've often spoken about the fact that the moderating middle seems to sometimes get the quietest voice, even though we're the majority of people are actually, looking at just tapering their drinking in some respect. So I definitely want to get into your thoughts on how all of that can help people who are looking at changing their drinking habits. But first of all, I always like to start with a little bit of the founder's backstory. So start where you'd like to start. But what was the inspiration that led you to create a 6% wine in the first place?
So very much kind of what you've just said, really. There are a lot of people who are just looking to moderate their alcohol consumption. So about 6-7 years ago, my wife Gabby and I, who's also a co-founder of 6%, we were out drinking at nice restaurants and going out for nice meals. We're going out to the pub, and we found that we loved wine. We loved the taste of wine, but it was quite a snobby environment, and we were kind of semi-restricted to how much we could drink. So we actually set up a wine tasting and events company just to kind of take the snobbiness out of wine. We ran that really well for about 5 years, but during that time, we actually consumed quite a lot of wine as we were wine tasting quite a bit, and that was during lockdown at the same time. And I think everyone's consumption kind of went up a little bit, and we started asking the question: well, hang on a minute, we love the taste of wine, and we genuinely love what wine creates. It's a bit of an art form to create something like that, and why does it have to be so restricting on the high alcohol levels? Like we can only drink so much of this thing without kind of really feeling bad the next day. So we looked around the world to see if there was anything in the mid-range or slightly lower. There wasn't anything. So we partnered up with some fantastic producers, which took us a long time to find, over in Bordeaux. And for the last 2 years, we've been working on our recipe to make sure that we kind of have the best tasting wine with half the amount of alcohol and half the amount of calories at the same time.
Amazing. I love that. I always love founder stories that start with the founders trying to solve a problem that they themselves are facing, because you know that those are the brands that are really made out of passion. Someone goes, look, this isn't good enough. We need to do something about this. And how can we make it better? So you had your wine tasting company. And so, yes, I can imagine that in those tastings, quote unquote. I mean, I've been in hospitality for a long time. I've seen many spittoon buckets. I haven't used many when you go on a tasting, because people do, don't you? You're just like, oh, great, it's wine. Why would I spit it out? Let's drink it. And it's very easy on something like that to find yourself getting very, very merry very, very quickly, because you don't realize how much you're having, do you?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And having been on quite a few of these things, and you can feel yourself getting merry. And I think that we found ourselves not only in that position during these tastings, but actually kind of everyday life. Like we would like to go out socializing, kind of whether that's inside pubs in like with alcohol and without alcohol. But when you go out socializing with alcohol, I, in general, I know it sounds a bit stereotypical, but I quite like beer, and Gabby really likes wine, and I can have a few beers, but she could only have one wine or so, and like she was very restricted on that, and that's unfair. Like, why isn't there something that creates that? Why is that restricting? And it's not very inclusive at all, is it? So the fact that there wasn't a product there to make it inclusive, to make kind of have that product there so that everybody has an option, um, meant that we kind of went out and tried to, as you say, solve the problem to come up with something for us. I'm also type 1 diabetic, so half of the amount of calories, which is half the amount of sugar, is a very good thing for me if I want to drink the drink that I like.
That's a really important angle, actually. I think not a lot of people recognize, the sugars that are involved in wines and full strength alcohol in general. It has as almost as much per gram, much calories per gram as fat. People don't realize that. And so when you start looking at your intake and you start going, oh, I'm dieting, oh, I'm slimming down for, you just went to a lovely wedding. People are always trying to look nice and trim for that. But you don't realize that the drinks that you're necking on the weekend are seriously impacting to that calorie count. So I think that's a really good point. Another good point that I love that you made actually was the difference between the beers and the wines, because you're right, it is always, a pint of lager for the fella and a glass of white for the lady. And it's that sort of stereotypical thing. But more women do tend to drink wine and more men do tend to drink beer. Um, and when I would go out, I would always want to match my friends for their drinks. It's drink for drink. Um, and obviously, if you're drinking a glass of wine, which has a lower amount of liquid but has more alcohol, you can't match a fella drinking a pint for pint for pint for pint without getting absolutely rotten within a really short amount of time. And then we wonder why we're always falling over. But absolutely, if you've got a glass of wine that's 14% and it's like the third of the liquid of a pint, which is only 4%, you're going to get pissed,
Yes,
right?
quite
Scientifically
frankly, yes.
speaking.
That is, yeah, yeah. Quite frankly, that is the case, and like, there's one person's going to be falling out of that door, and
Yeah.
I think that you're 100% right. What people have actually started to now flip to is, if you want to stay in a location, if we're talking about like the on trade, and we're talking about, let's just kind of talk about going to a pub for the moment, although socializing doesn't have to always revolve around alcohol or anything like that. Pubs need to change their menus to make sure that they are more inclusive. End of story. But like, if you are in a pub, you might be in there for an extended period of time, and if you're just nursing one small drink, that's just a little bit unfair. And people do want to buy to kind of have a few more things while you sat there with something in your hand, and it's just a natural human thing to do. So 25% of people that are now going out are zebra striping, which means they'll kind of have an alcoholic drink and then a non-alcoholic, then an alcoholic, then a non-alcoholic, just so they can kind of continue that drinking throughout an extended period of time. But to your point, they're not just kind of sat there with one small glass. And this is where I think that 6% kind of comes in, this mid-range alcohol. It means it's actually more of a headache to drink full strength, non-alcoholic, full strength, non-alcoholic, full strength, non-alcoholic, than it is just to kind of have a great tasting drink that you can sit there and sup away at without too much of the kind of the worry and anxiety that sits in the back of your mind, and you can genuinely enjoy your social situations. And that's kind of really what we brought it to the market to be. And then just for our consumers and customers, who the feedback seems to have been really good on this point, that it tastes good, and taste is absolutely king, because people aren't going to drink it if you don't get the taste right. There's a concept, but if you don't get the taste right, it's pointless, and that's why it's taken us 2 years to get to this point.
Absolutely. So talk to me about those challenges then. So, in making a 6% wine, I'm not a winemaker myself, despite the experiences that I've had around people who do, but I know it's a complex process just to make, we'll call it traditional wines at your average sort of 12.5%. What are the sort of challenges that you're looking at then when you're trying to make a 6% wine that gives the body and the flavor, particularly a red, because people are quite demanding of red wines, aren't they? They're not particularly forgiving about a red wine not tasting as they expect it to be. So what sort of challenges have you faced trying to bring this to market?
Very good question. It is in order. I think you had a podcast before, and just kind of reference back because there are some really good casts that have come before this. There's one with the Le Cap guys who have got a 5% rosé. Now they referenced at the same time that actually when you take the alcohol's in the alcohol's in the sugars. When you take the sugars out and when you take the alcohol out, you lose the flavour. And that is true. Like you completely lose the flavour. And actually, the way that we do it, we have gone to Bordeaux, which is a nice big, so you start off nice big and bold for flavors, and then we reduce using like quite innovative technology and even more innovative techniques to bring that down. So we actually, in order to get to where we are, we take full strength Merlot, strip it all the way down to zero, and there's a bit more in this, and then we blend it back up to 6%. So actually with our wines, there's minimum intervention over and above the normal process. So we literally have full strength wines that have been taken out, and the premium grapes that come out of Bordeaux, and we take those premium grapes, produce them to full strength wines, use this new innovative technology in order to bring it down, but retain those flavors. Now, other ways that people do, other products do kind of put flavor back in is by pumping more sugar in, pumping artificial flavors. We don't do that. We try to keep it as natural and as authentic as possible. In that, it's as minimal intervention as possible.
That's really interesting. And I think you make a really good point about what you start with, the base. You know, you've obviously picked a very bold grape that holds a lot of flavor, has a lot of tannin to it, so that you can have that mouth feel. Because what people want is something that they can feel that they are experiencing the same adult drinking experiences that they were either having before when they used to drink full strength, or especially as you say, the sort of zebra striping or blending approach, which is just generally mixing your drinks, even if you're not being strict, you know, one full, one low, one full, however you're doing it. You don't want to go from having something that's full bodied and full of flavor to something that's just a bit lacking.
Completely agree with you. I completely agree with you because it kind of that's what we're here to do, and that's why we have a drink. That's why we eat nice food, and we have food choices, we have drink choices because we just want to enjoy the scenario. What we don't want to do is suffer with it. And like with the age-old tradition, do you want a soft drink? Well, you're going to have a Coke, or you're going to have a water. It's just like it's crazy, isn't it? Like, why do I have to suffer with my flavour and like my experience? When actually what we're trying to do is enhance your experience by reducing the amount of alcohol in there whilst keeping the flavour. So yeah, I hear you. I completely hear you. And this is why I think the general middle ground, this mid-range category, is actually what a lot of people are looking for. It's just quite unknown, and there are a number of really good products in this category. But I don't think that people really know it. Everyone looks at no and low and expects it to be kind of under 1% type of thing. And then they look at the full strength, but there's this gaping middle ground, which is actually where most people would want to be if they are alcohol drinkers and looking to moderate.
Yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit then, because one question, so I've had a couple of mid-range brands on before, and one question I've put to them that I'll put to you has been about our supermarkets. So, you know, people go into our supermarkets, and I had an article in the magazine a little while ago. It was a debate piece about where mid-range drinks belong in our supermarkets, where people should find them, whether they should be in the low and no section, so that you know that if you're looking for something that's not full strength, that's where you go, or whether they should be in the full strength section because they are above the government guidelines of the 1.2% for low alcohol. As a producer of a mid-range spirit, a mid-range wine, where would you like to see your product sitting? Where would you like people to know to go to find you when they want something that's right at that sweet spot?
Again, brilliant, genuinely brilliant question, and a huge challenge with our industry because, like you say, there is a no low section, there is a full strength section, but there's nothing in between. Now, ideally, where we really need to get to is whether that's in a supermarket shelf, and this is like the general mid-alcohol category or lighter alcohol category. Um, then whether there's a section on the shelf which is just full of lighter alcohol products, or whether that is, but in the meantime, while that's not coming, we are a wine. Quite frankly, we are a wine, and we know what we are, and that's why we called ourselves 6%, because we're just going to own this to say that this is who we are, this is why we are, and like the you
For
sit
those
like
watching on the video, you can see the bottle here. It's very clear that that's a very big 6% right there, isn't it?
so in order to come up with that design, and I think people should watch the video if possible. If not, you can see it on our website, which we'll say later.
Absolutely.
6% wine. No, the way that I came up with that design actually is I walked down a supermarket aisle in the middle with my phone, and walked at a fair amount of pace to see which labels stood out, and kind of then we started to build on that, because to your exact point, we are a wine. We're going to be sitting on a wine shelf until we get a mid-alcohol range section, and hopefully that is a design that stands out a little bit more. So yeah, it's a very difficult point from an awareness standpoint of the category, to where do you sit, how does it come in. And that's why it's pioneering. Like this is a pioneering product in a category which is kind of completely unknown for the moment. We really need to explore this a little bit more.
I think you're absolutely right there. I think first and foremost, the government needs to sort out the labeling and the systems that we're supposed to use, because everybody is confused. Nobody knows the difference between the terminology, even the low, the no, the light, it's all it's a bag of worms for most people. And being within the industry, I see it on people's faces when I've given talks, and they're like, "Can you explain it?" So I try to explain it as simply as possible. And even then it gets complicated, because when you're talking to somebody about what's considered no alcohol in a pub, it's actually different to what's considered no alcohol in a supermarket shelf.
Mm-hmm.
And that's different to what's considered no alcohol coming in, being imported from America or somewhere else. And then you've got your de-alcoholized wines, which aren't the percentage that they have to be, means that any wine that's below that percentage has to be marked as de-alcoholized, even if it hasn't been. And then
Yeah.
you've got your low, which is 1.2, but that's not a law, that's just guidance, so people don't have to stick to it. And then we've got this new era, that this mid light, which we're all still trying to figure out, what do we call it, how do we refer to it, how do we label it, where do we tell people to look for it. So it's so complicated for the end user, which I think is such a shame, because at the end of the day, this is all about creating amazing drinks for people to have choices and to be
Amen.
able to go, I don't feel like drinking right now, so right now I want to know what my choices are. And I love that you took the proactive approach of going down that supermarket aisle and going, right, okay, what is there? What does it look like? What stands out to people? Because I think we need to just make it as clear as possible, so that people know that they have options and they can go and try them.
I completely agree with you, and I think we are definitely singing from the same hymn sheet here. It is a case that we need to get this awareness out there, and I think where these products sit, well, where this kind of whole category sits on the main part is it's really based around occasionality. So you on with our what we say as part of our kind of branding is, we are a brand that goes well with long lazy lunches, long afternoon barbecues, like the midweek drink. And these are things that from an alcoholic, if you do drink from an alcoholic beverage perspective, if you do drink alcohol, obviously, then there are times that you want to moderate. It is that kind of midweek drink, or sometimes you don't quite fancy a full strength wine, but you do want to have that wine. And why do you have to make another choice if there isn't that product out there? And this is what this 6% is there to do, is to try and bridge that place and bridge that occasion for people that actually just want that flavour. Like sometimes we just really crave a burger, but you're not going.
Yeah,
So yeah, sometimes you really crave a
yeah,
burger, and like,
yeah.
but you can't always eat the burger because it's quite. It can be it can be quite fatty. So what are you look for other options, and that's kind of what it is. Probably a bad way to just
No,
to
no,
describe it
absolutely,
there.
absolutely, absolutely. I'd have gone with a pizza, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I get you. Yeah.
Um, what are your thoughts on some of the other mid-range products that you see out there? Particularly, there's gins now that
Yeah.
have that they are full strength gins, but are supposed to be served in a very small thimble
Yes.
size or a tiny spoon. There are beers now within that sort of 2.5 to 3.5% range that are coming out now. Do you think that we're at the start of an explosion of this mid-range category?
Absolutely. I think we are literally at the. I mean, obviously, I'm going to say that I've just started up a new
No,
business in
no,
this
it's not
category.
going
No,
anywhere.
absolutely. But yeah. P.S. Anyone? We are going for some investment in there soon as well. So,
Oh, amazing, amazing. Yeah,
um,
okay.
yeah. Um, so I think that all the data is saying yes. So 10-ish years ago, you've got your seed lips of the world, which kind of revolutionized the no alcohol category. And the way that humans work and all the data that is suggesting this is actually you do flip from full drinking to then everyone went to no drinking, then everyone's like, well, hang on a minute. Well, not everyone, but lots of people were trying to say, well, hang on a minute, I just want to find a middle ground because that's where it's quite nice. And this is why I think that people just need to as soon as they understand this category, it kind of works very well. And there are, as you say, different products in different across the beverage industry are looking at different ways to moderate, like you say, using smaller, more concentrated measure, which is a completely fair way to do it, and that product has been specifically designed to do that. Or you can look at other brands such as Quarter or Classics in that spirits world that are looking to kind of cut the alcohol out whilst retaining the flavour. Two good, very good spirits as well. There are a number of kind of distributors and shops and things like that work out. And yeah, I think that yeah, there's places like Club Soda that you can buy that have a fantastic selection of no and low drinks. It's well worth having a look at.
Absolutely, and I think I was actually speaking to Laura the other day at Club Soda. Popped in to see her, and she's also a very big champion of the mid range as well. And she was saying it's very interesting. So people come into the shop, and quite often they'll be surprised because she does have a dedicated section. I should say they, because it's not just her; it's her and Juicy as well. They do have a dedicated section for mid range beverages. So the sorts of spirits and wines and beers that we were mentioning. And she says that people are often surprised because they expect her to just be no and low.
Mm,
But Laura's approach is one that I think would sit very well with yourself, Russell, because she's very much about showing people that a good life is about options, which I think is what we're both saying here. That for those who are teetotal for whatever reason, and it doesn't matter what your reasons are, then absolutely, if you only want alcohol free, then here's a fantastic range of drinks to have. But for those who aren't and who do want something else, she's very happy to provide a selection of those mid-range drinks and say, look, here are some other things to consider. Um, and it's quite interesting because I've spoken to a lot of people in the alcohol-free world who are very anti mid-range drinks. I
mm.
wondered if you've come across any resistance to your product from anyone who doesn't quite get it, or people who think that it's I've heard some refer to it as a gateway. It's you're just telling people that they should have more alcohol.
Um, I mean, with any form of change, there's always going to be somebody that doesn't like it. That is a human nature, and there's enough humans in the world to not like something. So you're
Yeah.
100% right that yes, there has been the odd occasional person that seems to have turned around, and whether that be because they don't quite understand the product or the nature of what we're trying to get into it, or maybe it's not quite the right fit for them, or yeah, they're looking for something slightly different. So if you want to go for a big, bold Bordeaux kind of sit down and you're going to chew through it wine, we're not the product for you. That's not what we're there to do. And this is the beauty of wine because there are so many different products right across the world. It's just we are there, as I say, for the specific occasion, and we have this like it's a beautiful. Medium bodied wine. It's got fruit forward, so just kind of keep all those classic Bordeaux, Merlot, and Cabernet Sauvignon characteristics with an element of so you've got kind of black cherries and berries, and then it has like a nice little bit of tannins at the end with some vanilla. So it kind of covers everything. And people will get that. People get the flavour as they're taking it in. I think that some people just don't quite get the concept, and that's
Mhm.
fine. To be honest, that's absolutely fine. The other thing that I have to admit that some people have said, and I'll quite openly say this, is, well, if it's half the alcohol, it needs to be half the price. And thank you.
Oh
I think
dear. Oh dear.
for those not watching the video, there was an appreciating nod. Um, but I
So
think
how do
that
you deal with those ones? Come on, because this is just it's part of the education piece, isn't it? That
yeah,
that people in the industry are trying to get this message out there. I've written articles about it, I've spoken about it, but it just seems that the message isn't getting there. What do you say to people when they say, well, it hasn't got as much booze, it shouldn't cost as much money?
okay, so the way that I put this back is to say there is an existing wine range on a shelf in a supermarket. You go in there, and those wines range from all different prices based on quality. Ours is set at £12.50 because we are quite an affordable premium product, and it is a genuinely nice tasting product that people will buy. And we use premium grapes to get in there. So, and yes, it does cost a little bit more to make because we have the added layer on top of that to reduce the alcohol. So yes, there are added costs. We try not to pass those on as much, so we kind of sit at a sweet spot of £12.50. But if you're looking, but the other thing that's kind of on a very specific note, but taking a step out of that is you're paying for an experience, right? So that is a flavour experience that you are paying for. Now, whether you're drinking a no alcohol product or a mid alcohol product, you still want it to taste good. So are you going to pay for something that tastes good? Like we pay more for a nice tasting food, you're paying more for a nice tasting wine, so more for a nicer tasting kind of spirit or something like that. So why would you not pay that tiny little bit more if you're going to have the whole experience of not still getting good flavour, but you're not going to be falling out of the door, as we said earlier.
Absolutely. I mean, there are so many things that go into making quality drinks. And one of the complaints for the low, no, and light industry in general has always been it doesn't taste as good. It's not as good as, my usual pint or my usual glass. So there's a call for producers to improve the standards, improve the qualities, but at the same time, there's a call for the prices to be reduced, and it just doesn't make sense to me. Because as you say, when you want quality, you have to be prepared to pay for it. People are These are people's jobs, people's livelihoods, people's passions, and even though it may be something that's helping you live the life the way you want to, those people still have to pay their rent or their mortgages or feed their children. So we need to be fair, right? First and foremost, we need to be fair. If you want someone to put the time and effort into making something that's great quality for you to enjoy, then pay for that time and effort. The other big thing for me is, how much money have we spent on alcohol? How much money have we spent on booze? I can't even tell you, obviously, the amount of shots that I've had that I did not want to have or that I did not enjoy. And of course, we've all been there. And that's not to say that everybody makes the same stupid decisions that I did when I was what I call professionally drinking. Um, but we've spent a lot of money on it. And what people don't realize is that what you've spent your money on is the thing that costs the least amount. Alcohol doesn't cost you anything, people. Alcohol is the cheapest ingredient in your glass. It's not what costs the money. What costs the money are the grapes or the grains or the vegetables or whatever your drink is fermented from. It's the processes, it's the time, it's the fact that alcohol is a preservative and it makes things last longer, that alcohol carries flavor. So full strength producers don't have to work as hard as brands like yourselves to make sure that the taste is great, because they've got an extra leg up from the booze
Mm.
that's adding all that flavour. So I think it's still the education piece, isn't it? It's still just getting people to understand what they're paying for. And I will say that if you are prepared to spend money on a full strength alcohol drink, the worst thing that can happen when you spend money on a low, no, or light drink is that you don't feel any different. The best thing that can happen is that you have a fantastic night and you feel great in the morning.
Yeah.
That's worth the spends, isn't it?
Amen to that. Yeah. And if we're talking about the continuity on to the next day, then I think that there's no argument, really, is there? So if you still get the flavour and you still get most of your day
Yeah.
the next day back, whereas you're kind of losing out on all of that, then yeah, I totally agree. And trying to get that across in a very in a very kind of easy to understand way to people is difficult. Frankly, it's difficult, and I think that the way that this consumer market works is if it tastes good and I can see the benefit, then I'm going to be happy with it. So again, kind of flipping back onto where we come from as 6%, our branding is very simple. So the third co-founder of ours is Jason Sennett, who is he's ex marketing and innovation directors at Suntory, Pernod Ricard, and Diageo. So he's kind of held quite senior positions in all of those. So he runs our marketing and commercial side. And we're alongside Gabby, who runs brand. We and is also our chief wine officer, which I think is probably the coolest name
Great
ever.
title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the way that we pitch this is we call it full flavour, half the alcohol, half the calories. And what we're trying to get across there is just to work on people's logic. That makes sense. Well, if I can still get the flavour, but actually there is enough information out there to say that drinking too much is a bad thing. People know that. People understand that.
Yes.
But what they don't want to give up is the flavour of the experience. But what we're trying to get across to them is actually we're going to enhance the experience. If you don't get so sloshed, then you keep the flavour. So it becomes that no-brainer option. And that's the way that we try to approach it with people, to try and keep it as succinct as possible.
Yeah, because you're right. It's hard to put all of that information on a bottle, isn't it?
Yeah.
So there'd be a lot of reading to be done. But I do like your message. I do like your branding. I like that it's clear. You know what you're getting. And actually, I found that with a lot of the mid-range producers out there, you're working very hard to make it clear to people what this is. And I want to stress that because it's important for me to reassure to those who are choosing to abstain completely that this isn't about people not understanding what's in their glass. It's not or bottle. It's not about being on a shelf within the low no section, because every founder I've spoken to is, by the way, in the mid-range, has said they don't want to be in the low and no section. They want to be in the full strength section. Clearly they ideally like to be in their own section, but if they can't be in a mid or a light section, they'd rather be in the full strength section, but clearly noted as a lower percentage in alcohol. Because it's not about tricking people into drinking full strength drinks. It's not about people not realizing what it is. It's about saying, when you want to have a drink but you don't want to have as much alcohol, come and have this, and this is where you find it, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, and it's very difficult. So you either come to the mid-range category from a 0%, and you did mention there it's the gateway drink, but if people don't want to drink it, then they won't drink it. So if you're a no alcohol drinker, there's some fantastic products out there. But to try and convert the people that don't drink alcohol in general, are very unlikely. They will come and try ours, and then that's good. But I think the vast majority, without excluding anybody, the vast majority of people that are going to be interested in the products are people that drink too much. They've got the awareness or they drink a lot of alcohol. They've got the awareness that it's not too good, and they're just looking for that product which is going to help them moderate a little bit more. And again, we are very inclusive and available to all. and we just want to enhance people's lives. Simple as that.
Yeah, exactly. You're not targeting the non-drinker saying you didn't like full strength, come and give mid-strength a go. You're
Yeah.
targeting the full strength drinker saying, did you know that you didn't have to drink full strength all the time? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
To an extent, yes, but I mean there are also cohorts within the no alcohol. You either completely abstain
Yeah.
100% from alcohol, end of story, or you do the zebra striping or flipping between, and it just helps you kind of that whole category of people that are looking to kind of balance out their alcohol consumption within their lifestyle. It's a balanced lifestyle option.
Excellent, excellent. So you've got the one at the moment, which is your lovely, lovely red, which I have tasted, by the way, just to clarify, and I did really enjoy it. And you know, for me, what I thought was really lovely was that mouthfeel. That was, it still had that body and it still had those tannins, and it was, oh, that's really nice. I'm not a big drinker anymore, obviously, but I'm quite happy tasting alcohol. My husband still drinks, so I'm always having a sip of what he's drinking. And I was like, if he was drinking that, I'd definitely have a couple of sips. So I thought it was really well made and well balanced. And I definitely see that you're going for that balance. So I thought you did a really great job. So obviously, my next question is, what's next? Will there be more?
Thank you. That's very kind, and that kind of feedback when you're kicking things off is just sensational. To be honest with you, and that is very similar to what we've been hearing across the board. That people are really happy and satisfied with the taste, which is a good thing, I think.
It's what you want.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yes, next on the card. So we actually launched with the red because it was the most difficult to do.
Okay,
It is the most difficult to try and retain those flavors. So we challenged ourselves to
love
push
it.
it to that sense. So we've got a white wine that's going to be coming out in the autumn. Again, it's a Bordeaux blend, Cabernet Sauvignon, Chardonnay, and a bit of Muscadel. The and then in next year we've got a rosé coming out, which again is delicious. We'll have that in time for next summer. It's both fantastic wines, really beautiful flavors in their own right. And then yeah, we'll continue innovating. Looking
Excellent,
forward to it.
excellent. Would you ever consider doing a sparkling?
We would, yes, yeah, 100%. So we've definitely started to look into that. That is the sparkling way of retaining flavors is kind of is the easier route.
Okay.
I'm I like I'm a glutton for punishment, me. So like it's the
Okay.
easier route to kind of retain flavors by putting some sparkles in there. But what we've tried to do is to keep that still product so that we don't. But yes, we are looking for sparkling, looking at the sparkling at the moment as well.
Great. So what I'm hearing you saying is watch this space, basically. There's
Absolutely,
more to come.
absolutely.
Excited, excited. Well, I definitely want to hear all about those. So make sure you let me know. In the meantime, if somebody would like to go and get hold of a bottle of your fabulous, fabulous 6%, where do we send them to go and make a purchase, or to find out more about you guys, or to get in touch? Because also you mentioned that you will be fundraising soon. So if anyone wants to speak to you about that, where should they go and find you?
So we are. So we're heading out for our first round of investments. We've got SEIS approval for our seed funding, and really what we're looking to do is to find the right investors and partners to work with us to really pioneer this new category. It is to what we've spoken about. We're kind of holding the pen as to what this looks like. The big players haven't really got into this, so we hold the pen now, and what we're looking for is really pioneering investors that want to kind of work along with us to push this thing forward because we're excited, we're keen, we're driven, and we've got a good team behind us, and we're looking for those. So if any of your listeners are or know of somebody that's looking for a good opportunity, feel free to contact me through the website.
Absolutely. And I think you make a really good point there that the big alcohol, they've jumped on the low and no, quite aggressively, but they haven't yet realized the opportunity of the mid range. And it is a huge, huge opportunity and it's only going to grow. So, absolutely, I'd encourage anyone out there in Lono Nation who wants to be part of this movement and to jump in on the first floor. I'll put all the links in the show notes below as to where they can get hold of you.
Thank you very much. So, yeah, the best place is via our website, and that's 6%.wine. So that's the number six written percent.wine. You'll find us on Instagram, yeah, Instagram, Facebook, all the usual places at 6% wine, 6%.wine, excuse me. And yes, by all means, jump on there. If you use for your podcast listeners, if you use the code Great Taste 10, you can get 10% off, and there's free shipping over £30 as well. So nice little incentive to stock up your cabinets for the weekend. But yeah, so if you jump on there, you can also contact me through the website.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I will make sure that's all listed in the show notes below. And thank you for the discount code for Low No Nation so they can go and try some of your fantastic wine as well. Now, Russell, before I let you go, you'll have heard by now, thank you for listening to previous episodes. You know that I have my now infamous barbecue question. Infamous because I've said it is, and I'm trying to, make it take off. But I love to spread the love for Low No Nation and all the amazing drinks that are out there as well. So we are in the middle of summer, she says, looking out of her window at a dark cloud that's about to break. And you are off to a barbecue or a picnic. Other than a bottle of the fabulous 6%, what other low, no, or light drinks do you bring with you that you like to enjoy?
I really like this question, and I did have to think about this quite a lot. So
Okay.
the first one I'm taking is a Cup Classics Caribbean rum. It sits in the mid-strength alcohol. It is 20% alcohol cup rum. It is sensational. It's got all the flavors in there. You can drink it neat. You can drink it. You can drink it with ginger beer. You can drink it however you like. It is just delicious, especially at a barbecue. Um, the second one that I would drink is based on the occasionality element. I got given, I was after a run, I got given an Athletic Brewing Golden Ale, which is 0%. It's an alcohol free beer. It is just beautifully tasting and it works very, very well. It's not the biggest and boldest of flavors, but after doing some form of exercise or going for a run or doing an event or something like that, it is Athletic Brewing. It is the perfect thing to have afterwards. And again, because we're talking about occasionality, that one sits with me all the time because I can just taste it and I can see it as I'm running towards the finish line. Um, and we would have to, I've obviously got to mention the wine as well. I think that the Wednesday's Main Red Sanguine there's a 0% alcohol is genuinely delicious. I also mentioned the Cap earlier at 5% as a rosé. You've got to push this category, and they have done a fantastic job with getting the wines out there as well.
Yeah, you're right. Le Cap have done a great job. That was the interview with Kieran Gandy and another lovely chap, and talking about the challenges of producing a wine at this lower percentage and getting it out there to people. So I hope you two are chatting because we need founders like you to be sharing the knowledge and working together to help boost this category. And Athletic Brewing, aren't they clever? Talk about
Yes.
great positioning.
Yeah.
they're doing all right.
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah, they've gone ahead and sponsored some quite big branded events and things like that. And yeah, again, I just think they've done well, very, very well.
They've done what they've become one of the biggest beer producers in the US. It's just phenomenal what they've done. And I think that when we look and we see the UK, we have a habit sometimes of copying what the US does. Think we're not copying. The trends make their way over here as well. But I think that what we do, which is just something quite unique to us over here in the UK, is that we produce a far greater range of low, no, and light drinks. And there's a chance for any of them now. If you take out the super big players, if you take out the Diageos and the, Pernod Ricards and all of those guys, for everyone else, there's an equal opportunity for them to get out there and get known and to really put their products in front of people, whether you want to position it as something that people have alcohol free after doing some exercise, like there's beer brands out there that do that, or if you're looking to be a wine that's that wine times but not full wine strength. There's so many great options. And that's why I love this question. I love asking it, because I love it when founders talk about other brands and say, look, there are more great things out there, and let's support each other. And it's nice because now I've started to make a list, and I can see that, it's just going around. This person's recommending this one, who says this one, and everybody's getting a shout out. And we need to do more of that, because we just need to let people know that there are more fantastic drinks out there.
Completely agree with you. I am. And for the listeners, the only thing that as a small cheeky ask, is that the best way to get this out there, if you are interested in this mid-alc, is just talk about it. Tell somebody. If you tell one person, then that's fantastic, because not only are we kind of helping to support these, kind of upcoming brands, but you're also kind of helping everybody else understand that there are other options out there. So that's only one small ask to your listeners.
And I think you're right, but I think it's really important, actually, because we need to talk about this more. And the more we talk about it, the more people will realize that they're not on their own. You're not the only
Mm,
person who's thinking about reducing their alcohol intake. You're not the only person who wants to drink less during the week and save it for the weekend. Or you're not the only person that's like, I can't cope with the hangovers anymore. I need to take it down a notch. And that's what I found when I was doing this. I was the ultimate party girl. And I didn't think that anybody would get it. But the more people I spoke to, the more they all said, you're right, I'd love to drink a little bit less. Might not want to give up, but I might want to cut back. And
yeah.
so we just got to talk to people about it and spread the word and share your favorites and make recommendations. If you find something that you like, tell a friend. In fact, tell
Yeah.
6
Amen.
friends.
Yeah, exactly. And it's your barbecue question. Look, people kind of force you take something to a barbecue, so people just pick up whatever they got from the thing.
Yeah.
Be cool. Take something different that people are actually going to talk about, and actually go, to your point. This is exactly what I want. I don't really want to be sat on like this big bold stuff all day, and I've got a nice meaty barbecue, and I want a red wine, but I can't drink a red wine all day, but I can drink this 6%. That's a cool thing to do, and it's a conversation turner.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. What are you drinking? Can I try it? People want to try these things now. I've noticed more and more people, if you've got something low, no, or light in your hand, more people are interested in trying it than if you just got a new full strength beer. It's like, oh, that's another beer, but this is interesting.
Amen. Amen to that.
Russell, thank you so much for joining me. I have loved chatting to you today. Let's keep in touch. I want to hear all about those new wines as and when they come out, and get you back on the pod and talk a bit more about how things are going.
Fantastic. Well, Denise, honestly, been a genuine pleasure to have this chat. And yes, we will definitely be speaking in the future.
Amazing. Thanks, Russell.